still be happy. You can do whatever you like. You don't have to be ready.
Hey cuties, and welcome back. Today I have a really exciting video for you all because I'm gonna share all of the full body outfits that I currently have in game for female Sims, and there's a lot, let's just say that. There is quite a few. You can find links to everything in the description down below, and I've also done a bunch of these showcase videos for different categories, not only for females but also male Sims and kids and toddlers in the past. I'll make sure to link the playlist right now if you're curious to see more CC that's in my game. But without further ado, you know the drill by now. Grab a snack, grab a drink, grab whatever you need to be comfy for the next few minutes because oh boy, we're gonna be here for a minute. This is gonna take a while. I actually, before I started recording this, took a few hours to go through all of the CC I had in the full body category, and I got rid of so much. I feel like prior to this video, because today we have like 260-ish items if I remember correctly, and I feel like before there were more like 500 things in this category, and there were a lot of items that I've had in my game for years that I didn't like because they kind of felt outdated. A lot of them weren't made as well because back then creators were still, you know, trying to get the hang, I feel like, of creating Max's Match CC. A lot of it just wasn't as high quality as I prefer in my game, so I got rid of all of that, things that I never use, things that I don't like the style of. I have a lot of things in game for like seasonal stuff, so whenever Halloween comes around, you know, there's stuff added to the game where I'm like, I don't need this because I'll never use it unless I want to make a Halloween lookbook, and then I can just re-download a bunch of new things for that. So got rid of so much CC, and I was actually quite proud. It felt really good because I feel like the first time I went through and I was like, oh my god, we still have like 400 plus items. This is just not manageable. I would have had to split it up in two videos. Also, you can let me know if you would have preferred that because obviously this video is like a chunky one. We're here for 20 minutes, which I hope we can, you know, stick to together. Like it's just a bit of time, but I could have split it up into two 10-minute videos and then uploaded them on 2 Fridays, for example, or even on the same Friday I could upload 2 parts. I don't know. If you have a different preference, let me know. I just kind of like having it in this one video if at all possible. I know that for the kids CC or toddler CC, I don't remember, I split it up into 2 videos because in one I showed off full body things and in the other I showed off tops and bottoms, which is not going to be possible for females. I have so many tops in my game. I don't know if I can ever make a video about that because I feel like I don't know. There's like probably 1,000 or something. I don't even think I'm exaggerating. Like there's so many female chops I have in my game, and currently I just don't see myself going through all of it all at once to make a video. Maybe I have to like gradually go through it. Also, we do like CC hauls here on this channel every second week, so I just keep adding a bunch of new CC to my game every 2 weeks, which then makes it harder to get rid of things. I also like planned on after every CC haul going through the CC and being like, okay, what of these things do I actually want to keep in my game? But do I ever do that? No, I do not because I'm just unorganized. It is how it is, which also brings me to a topic I don't actually think I've discussed here that much, which I think once I start explaining you will realize why. So some of you might remember that at the beginning of February I went to a daily clinic that you go to like for mental health. I'm not going to go too deep into like very triggering parts of mental health if that's something that you don't want to hear about. I'm going to mainly talk about ADHD. If you don't want to hear about anything that happened, just skip ahead a few minutes. Totally understand that. But just going to go into like my ADHD diagnosis. I've been trying to do one for 2 or 3 years now, I feel like, because at the very start of the big C, I watched a report on a woman who got diagnosed with ADHD, and just seeing her manage her life, I was like, oh my god, that's me. And my best friend at the time was like, Cora, that's literally like all of this is you. Like the way she would like have to remind herself of doing things by putting alarms on her phone, the way she never knew where her keys are. She started building this wardrobe like months ago and then never finished. It's like all things that I see in myself where I was like, oh, like I thought that was just, you know, my personality. I didn't realize there was like a word for it. Turns out a lot of people during that time were like, oh, maybe I have ADHD, because back in the days, it wasn't actually known that ADHD carries over to adulthood. Like, people would just believe it was something kids had and then you kind of outgrew it, let alone women or girls having it. That's like a whole nother issue, because women with a lot of mental health things portray their symptoms in a different way, because we're raised different with like different expectations. Like, I as a child probably wasn't allowed to dance on tables, be roughhousing with other kids as much as boys might have been, especially back in my day, because I'm 27, so it's not like, you know, I grew up in the late 90s. So it was like, not, I think the awareness wasn't there. I don't think it is now the way it should be, that boys and girls should be raised the same and it doesn't really matter. That's something I'm like really passionate about, and I don't get why we haven't gotten there yet, but it is what it is. But obviously back then it was even more so. So I think I just from a very early age started masking certain things. Like, I was always daydreaming, always in my head. I was just very inattentive, couldn't do anything that I was not interested in, which is like the biggest thing that I saw in myself. Was like, oh, I don't think this is normal, because people always just put it down to me being lazy, whilst I wasn't with things I was interested in. Like, I could sit and do math tasks, for example, for 10 hours because I loved math. So I was like doing that on my own terms at home, but everything else at school that I wasn't interested in, I was just kind of like doing when someone told me to. I went to like I don't know if it's that common in other countries, but here we have a place like a kindergarten, but for school kids, that after school you can go to because your parents are working and then they can pick you up. I think in other countries it's a lot more common to have like nannies or other parents taking care of you. I don't know. But here, a lot of times you either stay at school and they take care of you there until your parents pick you up, or you go to like a different place, and that's where I went. And they structured my life for me because they made me eat, and then we had to brush our teeth, and then we had to do our homework, and there were a lot of kids from my class, so I didn't even get to be like, I don't have homework today, or like, I never knew what I had to do, to be honest. But they sat me down and they knew exactly what I had to do because other kids wrote it into their little homework booklet that we had. I don't know if you had that too, just like a little homework thing where you had to write down all the homework you had to do. And I would never have remembered that. And I also was just the type of kid who would just do things for the sake of doing it. I would just rush it and be like, I'm done with this, it doesn't matter. And I think I just compensated in school because I was very good at picking up information when I just half listened. And I think I was also fortunate to grow up how I grew up, with like parents who had like good education, who then could, you know, take me to museums, just stuff like that. I had books growing up, you know, like it's definitely very privileged to grow up like that. And I don't know if I would have gone through school the same way if I didn't have that, because I think as a child I was quite intelligent compared to like a lot of others. Sorry, I just knocked my mic. Compared to other kids, just because of the way I was brought up. So I was fortunate enough to just like kind of manage through school. But when I got older, I just never even went to school. I honestly, from today's perspective, I have no idea how I ever wrote exams, because like I was never at school growing up. But it somehow managed. And like I said, I think I just got really good at masking certain things that weren't expected from me as a female, and that caused a lot of like inner stress and anxiety. And I also read that people with women, especially with ADHD, often just get diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I'm not going to go into those topics because they can be triggering, but that's what happened to me. But I never fully felt like that was like the root of issues, because I went to therapy, took meds, and it never really felt like that was really truly it. But it's super hard right now to do an ADHD diagnosis, and I know it's like that in a lot of countries. It's not just in Germany, but it's like almost impossible. You have to get so lucky to get somewhere where they don't have either a waiting list of like month and month, which I would have been fine with, but mostly they're like, we don't even have a waiting list anymore because it's just so full, just like that's that. So when I went to the clinic, which my psychiatrist told me to do, I was like, I'm just here for the diagnosis. Like, I don't care about anything else. That's like what I want to do. And I don't know. I feel like the whole experience there wasn't really good for me. First of all, because what we did wasn't what I needed. And second of all, because I felt the same things that I would hear throughout my life. Oh, you don't seem like this. You don't seem like that. All the time, which was just so upsetting to hear from professionals, because I was like, yes, I'm just very good at masking things and that's just how I grew up. But when I talked to my therapist 101, I would tell him like everything that was going on in my mind, and we did the whole diagnosis you have to do, because when you do an ADHD diagnosis, you have to do like a whole screening thing for a bunch of other mental illnesses and diversities, because it can often portray as symptoms of ADHD when you have something else. So I went through all of that, got all cleared out for that. And then I sat down with my therapist and he said, well, you have all the criteria for ADHD, so I have ADHD, but he didn't want to put it into my like proper health file. Like, I have a report from the clinic where it does state fulfills all the criteria for ADHD, which you only do if you have ADHD, if you don't have any of the other things that often portray as it, which I don't, like I said. But that was just a mess, because I cried so much, because I was like, oh, does this mean I have to start from like ground zero again? Because people are always like, oh, I don't know about ADHD, can't do the diagnosis. And it was just so frustrating for me. And the main doctor in the clinic, who was responsible for like not just our part of the clinic, but also like the stationary one where you stay overnight, and like a bunch of other parts in that hospital, he saw me for 5 minutes every Thursday, and all he ever said to me was like, oh, you don't seem like that, you don't seem like this. And he pretty much let me go as, oh, you're healthy. And it was just so weird, because I've talked to so many like therapists and psychiatrists in the past, and never have they said I'm fine. So I was just like, it was really bad. I talked about this in another video, and then someone said, oh, you kind of got like gaslit there. And I like thought about it, and I was like, yeah, like what happened was actually not okay, that they knew I had things going on, and it states that clearly from my therapist, like all of my other diagnoses as well. It states all of them, and then this doctor's just like, you're fine. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not. That is just so odd. It was also weird because he obviously didn't know me. Like, seeing a person for 5 minutes every week doesn't do anything. And like I said, I'm good at masking because I also have social anxiety, so I don't want people to notice that I behave in a different way, but that's what makes it so exhausting to do certain things, because obviously if you always mask who you are and what you feel, it becomes more exhausting to do social things. But that's why for me it was very hard to know what to do with like the half diagnosis, because it was like, he said, yes, you have ADHD, you have all the criteria for it, but he didn't put it down anywhere. So I was like, can I say that I have it now? Like, is it fair to other people who have it? But I talked to a friend I met at the clinic who he also got diagnosed with ADHD, because he's a man. He portrays exactly the same symptoms as me, but he's a male, so he got diagnosed. He did his therapy with like a doctor there who built up the clinic, so I think she had more of a standing when it came to like giving diagnoses. I don't know what the plural of diagnosis is. Diagnoses? I don't know. So I think she had more of a standing, so that was that. But he was like, yeah, of course you have it, like you fulfill the criteria. Just because they're being like careful about it doesn't mean you don't have it, you know. And that gave me a lot of like not confidence, but like I felt better about it, because he got diagnosed with it and he didn't think I was like an imposter. I don't know, I have that feeling all the time when I get diagnosed with things where I'm like, do I actually have it? Like, is it okay to say this? But I have accepted for myself at this point, I feel like half, maybe a quarter, I don't know, that I've got it, which is not the end of the world. For me, that's like a good outcome, because I can point a lot of things that I do to that, but there's also a lot of strategies, and there's also a lot of good things. Like, there's something called a hyperfocus when you have ADHD, and it means if you're very interested in something, you can work for like a long time and you're very concentrated, very focused, which a lot of people don't know or even think about because, you know, they just think people with ADHD are generally inattentive and can't focus. But if you're actually interested in something, like I am a lot of times with videos, I sit here, especially with these like CC videos, I sit here for 10 hours on end, don't take breaks. I'm just like working and enjoying it. And that's the good part about it. So I just have to kind of like manage, find a therapist who actually gets along with me and like sees who I actually am under all of the masking, which I show in therapy all the time. Like I have no issue because I overshare, which a lot of people with ADHD do too. So I'm a little bit of an oversharer. So I don't mind. Like if you ask me a question, I'll tell you anything. I don't see the point of not saying something. I also don't have the same filters, I feel like, which a lot of times in the past with friendships and things was not good. And it's something I've learned the hard way because people are always like, oh, I love how honest you are, until they don't, and then they leave. And it's just like, I wish you would have told me earlier, you know, before it all went downhill. But that's just humans. I feel like that's just part of growing up. It's just odd because I would say I'm like very empathetic, but I definitely know as a teenager was often like very harsh without wanting to be, because that filter just hasn't built up yet. I didn't know what was good to say and what wasn't good to say, so I just said whatever was on my mind. And I definitely do regret that these days because I'm like, oh, like, that was probably like hurtful a lot of times or whatever. But I just honestly, I didn't know. Like a lot of times as well when people were like, oh, it's upsetting because of this and this, I would be like, oh really? Like it doesn't, I don't know, it didn't seem like that to me. It just seemed like I was being honest, and that's what people always said, like, oh, we love when you're honest. And I was like, okay, but what kind of honest do you want me to be? So, you know, I think that was like a struggle of me being a teenager and young adult, but I think I've overcome that for the most part. Like for the most part, I can figure out what will hurt people now and what is honest and productive. But that was a long journey until I got there. That was a lot of like hard work. But yeah, like I didn't realize I could talk about this for this amount of time, but it's obviously something I'm very interested in. If you have ADHD or suspect to have it and you want to share anything in the comments, feel free. It was also funny because the first time I suspected to have it, I don't like self-diagnosing, so I would always be like saying that I want to do a diagnosis and I feel like I might have it or might not, you know, but I never say I have it. I went to like a self-help group, I don't know what you guys call that, for ADHD on Wednesday with a friend, and there were so many people who said like, oh, I have it, I don't even need a diagnosis. And to me that felt really, I don't know, uncomfortable, because so many things can portray as it, and I think self-diagnosing can often be really harmful for people, because the more you tell yourself you have something, the more you will become that, you know, kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And a lot of things you don't want to have, like there's so many things out there that you don't want to have, and it's better if you don't. And it's okay if you struggle, it's okay if you do therapy. It doesn't need to be something that's like, I don't want to say wrong with you, but you know, like it doesn't need to be something as grand as like having a proper diagnosis. It could just be that you're struggling. But yeah, let me know. I don't know, any thoughts you have. I'm sorry, I just knocked the mic again because I'm talking with my hands a lot today. So unprofessional, but that's just me. That's why you're here, okay? You're not here for me being professional, you're just here for the wild ride. If you're still even here, hello, you made it this far. I'm so proud of you. I was gonna say though, when I first thought about potentially having ADHD, I got so many comments of people being like, oh, I have ADHD. Do you maybe have ADHD? Like, I hope this is not like offensive or anything, but do you maybe have ADHD? Because like I see myself in you so much, and I was like, huh, that is so interesting. So I guess I just need to now find some friends that have the same symptoms as me to not feel like an alien. That is a journey I will go on soon. But anyways, this video is coming to an end real soon here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some new CC. And if you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you all next time. Bye!
You'll see them again. Won't you